The general critical orthodoxy for appreciation of this is rather like Pauline Kael suggested, that Greenaway was a cultural omnivore who eats with his mouth open, and also suggests that these films were visually indigestible, that people want things slower, more practiced, more delivered, but of course they're only falling back on their own prejudices and orthodoxies.
But my 10-year-old son would not say this, you know, that is a difference in a generation. You have to wait until these people with taste are dead, you know, then we are tasteless. But because of that, everything is allowed, and our brains and our senses can work have to work together. So I have a problem, you know, with people that music and film, they should work together. I think the point is it only work together if you don't push it. If you, as you said, bring in people with their own strengths. You know, okay, you are the director, so at the end you can make choices of your own because it's your film, not his film. But okay, is there any reason, because Michael Nyman was also on our list, but then somebody said Greenaway and they hate each other, so you should not invite him.
Well, the polite way of answering that question is that we exhausted one another. The impolite way was that we were such a close married couple that a divorce was inevitable.
The question is, he may kind of has not developed so much anymore after his first stages. That is probably the problem for us to invite him, because he always wants his band with him. He cannot be alone anymore, obviously. After the marriage with you, he needs now a group.
Well, I can tell you, he certainly wants the marriage to start again, but no, I'm not going back into that church, no.
Yeah, guys, see, because I'm not there to crack the whip, you know, they are not saying anything.
In your Emma's Not the Mozart, were you thinking of Mozart, Peter Brook's?
There are, you've got the lecture theatre situation there, and the whole thing is happening in a musical madhouse, so there are obviously connections. Yes,
I thought that was a very interesting connection for me, because I hadn't seen that earlier on.
Yeah. There are, I mean, I showed you, I think, two sections in class yesterday, and you've seen one more now, and there's still three more. So there are quite a number of different moods according to different musics, but it all happens within the same, essentially the same, I suppose, operating theatre. And you could see lots of references to animated Vesalius drawings there, which were posited in, I don't know, what, 1580, something like that.
Do you direct the choreography to, or do you have a particular choreographer?
Well, I've worked with all sorts of choreographers. This choreography was created by French choreographer, I'm desperately trying to remember her name. She works out of Caen. She has her own theatre group there. Can't remember her name. But the answer to your question is, again, within my aegis and my control, saying what we need, etc., and what the product needs, I would give them enormous amounts of freedom. In The Tempest, also, we worked with other choreographers from England, and you can see the dancers operating here in Emma's for Mozart. I've done a lot of collaborations with Anna Teresa de Kesmarker, and lots of American dancers too. The notion of space that is within a dancer's control is always of great, great interest to me. And there must be other ways of organizing human activity than exists basically so-called in orthodoxies. And I'm very, very keen to embrace those sort of imageries.
Will the website have a soundtrack score?
Yes, it will. Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah. A very sophisticated one, I hope.
I know your love for text, but your movies are visually captivating, and I'm wondering if you ever thought about making a movie without any text at all. No dialogue, no words written on the screen, just through images and telling a story that way.
Yeah, it's a possibility, though I do feel I would maybe be chopping off this arm, and I like to use this arm as well. And I do generally feel that most filmmakers seem to go into the studio or into location with a blindfold and their arms tied behind their backs. I think we've discussed this in the last 2 days. The possibility for moving imagery is huge, and the conventional orthodox feature film only uses a very small part of that spectrum. The introduction here of graphisms and graphic art and the acknowledgement of the picture plane is a very rare thing, I think, in the notions of orthodox cinema. And I think this is such a rich and extraordinary vocabulary, forever getting richer and richer and richer. These are amazing tools, and I think we are obliged to use them. As you can see, at this particular stage of my life, I am certainly not a minimalist.
What do you think the impact on is politically and socially of this kind of oversaturation and this kind of excess?
Do you use oversaturation because you are oversaturated,
No,
or you take
because
it?
it came up before, or overload. I didn't mean overload. I mean, just sort of,
Well, and, you know, maybe again, you know, the orthodox, the people who expect to be presented with a cinema which is about mimicry, which is about a hole in the wall, which is about illusionism, of course they're going to have problems. Those sorts of people don't particularly want to acknowledge the screen as a screen. They're not interested in the matter of the business. They're not interested in language for its own sake, so they're going to have problems, I think. But the responses that we get, certainly, shall I say, with audiences who are very, very literally articulate in terms of the new technologies, are delighted and excited about these possibilities. The brain, the imagination can well handle this complexity of language, I'm sure. So for those who have a problem, it is essentially the shock of the new.
I'm a bit curious now about 8.5 Women in the sense that you chose not to, because after viewing all of this and seeing the value that you found in it, and then I'm wondering, you did it to in 8.5 Women to try in some way play with silence as something musical in itself. If that was, I know that's a bit paradoxical, but was that something that you were attempting, or was?
Well, I suppose perversely, maybe I was out to challenge myself. We've been talking again about the decline of imagination in an artist, and the notion of a curve or trajectory of projection and progression and so on. So it's absolutely essential for me to tack forward and to take new tacks and see what happens, deliberately to go into places I haven't gone before. And rather like your question in the middle, of course there are many examples of films that have succeeded without music, and I was curious to challenge myself. There's another reason too that this is, I suppose, one of the quarrels I wish you to have with Michael Nyman, which takes precedence, the dialogue or the music, and there's an inevitable battle. Because unlike the eye, which has the ability to sort things out, the ear does not have that ability. And so unless you organize things very well, you just get a whole concomitant cacophony of noise, which is very difficult to sort. So you have to be careful about mixing music and dialogue to make sure there's coherence and there's sympathy one with the other. Because, I mean, rather like Louis Anderson, all his demands are, because he really is a frustrated pop star, even though his heroes are Rice and Stravinsky, is always to turn the sound up so loud that you can't get anything at all. But I always fall out with composers, because I'm quite convinced the composers have no sense of humour. Okay.